Commanders fans, man, I don't want to smile or laugh, but Ben Johnson really hit us with the okie doke. He hit us with the pump fake. This man, I'm not gonna say he played with the Commanders, but I'm gonna say someone of the media played with the Commanders or just played with us. Like everybody said, it's a lock, it's a lock, it's a lock, it's a lock. Boomer Esiason, Tony Pauline, Benjamin Albright, everybody who was a talking head except for Schefter and maybe John Keim. I think Schefter and John Keim were the only ones who were like, it's not a foregone conclusion. Those only people that said it. And Schefter was like yesterday on Pat McAfee, he was like one of the two, either the Dan Quinn situation going to the Seahawks or Ben Johnson going to the Commanders. One of the two or both will not happen, but nobody wanted to believe him. Nobody wanted to believe him. I was like, I'll sit back and watch what happens. We'll see what happens. But Ben, in his explanation, he wants to go back and win a Super Bowl, which the odds of that happening, it could happen. It could, but you have a head coach above you that is, you get a lead. Ben Johnson did a good job orchestrating plays. The Jameson Williams run, the touchdown for David Montgomery, 2 really good drives that helped him go up to be up 24/7. You have a head coach above you who's calling, telling you go for it on 4th down every time. And it wasn't Dan Campbell's fault. Josh Reynolds did drop some passes, but you want to go back to that? And it's not a bad situation, but at the same time, don't you want to be the end-all, be-all where you make the decision on 4th down instead of Dan Campbell, a.k.a. Dan Gamble. I know the running joke is on Blackjack. If he gets 18, he still says hit me. He's still going to keep going and going like the 4-on-4 Dallas. That was a heck of a drive. He led down the field against Dallas to go to overtime, where it should have went to overtime, but you have a head coach above you that's going to go for it on 4th down and put you in a bad situation. So I get maybe why he wants to go back, but don't you want to have your own situation where you can decide whether you want to go for 2? You can decide where you want to go for it on 4th down. That's my opinion on it. Adam Schefter said Ben Johnson was not the head coaching lock that people thought, and his asking price spooked some teams per sources. Now, I don't think it spooked us. I think Josh Harris would have paid him. He said $15 million. Josh Harris would have paid that money. He's not cheap with the Sixers. He's not cheap with any other teams that I see. They're gonna pay Joel Embiid. They're gonna pay Tyrese Maxey. They're gonna pay their guys. They're paying Tobias Harris. They're paying players. They're not cheap with paying their guys from the other teams that I see. So I don't think $15 million would have spooked Josh Harris off. So some definitely have behind the scenes, or Ben Johnson just genuinely really wants to come back. But for them to have another interview and fly out to Detroit and then you get this information, like it's a bombshell. That is a bombshell. All Gaudy tweeted, there's zero chance that Ben Johnson is staying with the Lions because he wants to win a Super Bowl with them. This is about the Commanders and Seahawks not truly wanting him or him not truly wanting them. Yeah, that probably is true. That is probably true. I guess he's waiting for a better situation next year. I don't know. But the Seahawks, that's a good situation. And here's a good situation too. Like, you get the 2nd pick of the draft. You have a lot of cap space. You have a young team that you can orchestrate. I get the talent's not there. Like, and I know people's concern was like, oh, is he a leader of men? And he's not gonna come here and have David Montgomery. He's not gonna have Jahmyr Gibbs. He's gonna have Terry, but Armon Ross, St. Brown, Sam Laporte. We don't have a tight end to really speak of. Logan Thomas, but he's on his way out the door in retirement. Offensive line is nowhere near what the Lions got their offensive line. And then golf, you got to draft a guy and develop a quarterback. So it's not that simple and easy for Ben Johnson to get to fame. So it's a lot of situation here. It's a lot of stuff that is going on here too. But you look at the rest of the candidates that are left here. Bobby Slowick, Mike McDonald, and Eugene Shin. Josh Harris said that he wanted to build his team just like the Ravens are, and he still gets the opportunity if he brings in Mike McDonald and then drafts Jaden Daniels. He already has Eugene Shin, so that certainly could be where it's like, oh, this is the team that I want to build just like the Ravens. So that could be that situation there. I keep getting all these texts and stuff. It could be that certain situation, but you look at the candidates that are left. My preference is Bobby Slowick. Offensive-minded guy, under the Shanahan tree. We've seen how that has gone. He was here before. Developed C.J. Stroud, the Rookie of the Year. You see what he did with a young quarterback. So you see that he can develop a young quarterback. With Ben Johnson, there's no concrete evidence of that. There's no concrete evidence on it because Jared Goff was already in the Super Bowl. Jared Goff, say what you want to say about Jared Goff with the Rams, but he had a lot of experience and played in big time games, big primetime games, and big playoff games, and in the Super Bowl. Anthony Weaver, defensive line coach, he's already on an interview for a defensive coordinator position with somewhere else. So he already knows he's not going to get the job here. Aaron Glenn, I don't really want him. He's not a bad defensive coordinator, but you watch the Lions, they gave a lot of passing yards. They gave up 200 yards receiving to CeeDee Lamb. They gave up a bunch of yards to Puka Nacua in the playoffs. Two really good receivers, but still, he just gives up a lot of passing yards. He gives up a lot of yards. So he's not really my preference. I really don't want a defensive-minded guy. If I had to take Dan Quinn, of course, not looking for Dan Quinn. I don't want to retread. I want a young, innovative offensive mind. That's just what the NFL and the league is trending towards. You look at Sean McVay, Mike McDonald, Kyle Shanahan. Just a lot of the coaches that are in the playoffs are making moves are really young, innovative minds. They're young, innovative. Even D'Amico, he's a defensive coordinator, but he's still a young guy, and not the old kind of Ron Rivera. Get off my lawn. Ron Rivera is not really get off my lawn kind of guy, but he's still just old in that old school way of thinking, just not innovative. Him as a GM was just awful, old school kind of guy, and it's just not what you want for your team. So. Diana Racino also said Ben Johnson has made the decision to stay in Detroit for weeks. This option was always on the table. The Commanders knew they weren't a lock and had been operating with this information. So the Commanders knew. They didn't move like it was just a lock. We know Ben Johnson was at the presser and was like, "Oh, Adam Peters is a great guy. I've heard nothing but good things." Of course, that's why I said he's just being professional. Just because he says that does not mean he's automatically coming over to the Commanders. That doesn't automatically mean that. So, and I knew that. So, but it was getting exhausting, making videos every day saying the same thing. Ben Johnson's a lot, Ben Johnson's a lot, Ben Johnson this, Ben Johnson that. So I'm kind of happy that's over with. But at the same time, we'll see what happens, man. We'll see what happens, man. My preference is Bobby Slowick, and then after that is Mike McDonald. So I think it's a win-win if you do end up with Bobby Slowick or Mike McDonald. Mike McDonald, you saw what he did to Pat Mahomes, held him to 17 points. He was not the reason why they lost. You saw what he did to Ben Johnson during the regular season. You saw what he did to Bobby Slowick and the Texans offense, holding them under 10 points. So Mike McDonald has a legitimate resume. He creates turnovers. He forces turnovers, something that we have not done for years. So, we'll see. We'll see. All right, you guys let me know what you guys think, man. Ben Johnson with the okie doke, man. Pulling it back and turning us down, man. So we'll see what happens. All right, you guys let me know what you guys think. And a lot of people are like, oh, it's just the same old Commanders. Nobody wants to come here. I don't think that's the case. I really don't. I still think we're more of an attractive destination than what we were before. So I don't think that's the case. So, but we'll see. Well, we'll let this play out. If anybody says something that's a lock, I will not believe them. I will wait until pen goes to paper and they actually sign somebody. Nikki Zavala says the Commanders will still interview Lions, DC, Aaron Glenn, and Detroit, a person with knowledge of their plan set. So we'll see how that plays out. All right, you guys let me know what you guys think. Hell, the Commanders. Peace.